Hello, good morning, everybody. This is Christian. Welcome to CoreALM. We'll be presenting today on managing and automating SAP testing with Solution Manager and also with Focus Build. We're excited to show you a better insight into testing and why Test Suite can be the best option as your testing strategy. We welcome you if this is your first time attending and thankful for our regulars to return. We run these workshops to give back to our SAP community, which is part of our company's culture. Also, we ask that you participate in the polls so that we can continue to provide fresh content on future webinars. In our last workshop, we covered migrating to Test Suite, which saves in cost and also provides the highest value among testing tools. If you'd like to learn more about this topic, please feel free to reach out to us. All right, so here's the agenda for today. It's full of great information, and we'll be also holding a Q&A session toward the end, which we highly urge you to submit any of your questions and situations as well. So we're a dedicated team of experts focused on digital transformation lifecycle. We are here based in Los Angeles and founded in 2009 and consider ourselves SAP knowledge leaders in the area using a proven agile methodology for quicker adoption. We have some of the awards that we've received in the past on digital transformation lifecycle. And here is a brief slide of the services that we do offer. We use a holistic approach to the application lifecycle management and the complete functional capabilities of Solution Manager. We have the resources to deliver in managing your application lifecycle management, and also with the push to HANA. We also help companies with HANA conversions and upgrades as well. All right, so I will go ahead and introduce our host for today's webinar. Here I'll hand it over to Doug, who is our Director of Operations, as well as Larry, who will be taking over and presenting more content after Doug. Larry Wilson is our Senior SAP Testing Architect here with CoreALM. Thanks again, everyone, for attending, and I'll now hand it over to Doug.
Very good. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining today's webinar. As said, we're going to introduce you to Test Suite in the context of Focus Build. So thanks, everybody, for joining. So just before we get started, we live in the world of application lifecycle management. That's where Solution Manager falls into play. And so I just want to do a quick review of application lifecycle management so you guys have a understanding of where we're coming from as a company and as a service provider. So if you go look at Wikipedia, basically what they say about application lifecycle management is basically everything to do with software from the initial conception through its retirement. It includes things like documentation, testing, tracking of changes, and managing of releases. Also from an ALM perspective, application lifecycle management perspective, we've seen a lot of developments in this area over the last 5 or 6 years, moving from historically where we did waterfall, like using the ASAP methodology, now to really adopting and really moving into DevOps. So it's been an exciting time to be in the application lifecycle management space. Like any type of lifecycle, basically there's different processes that you run through, and this is an example from an SAP standpoint where the way they look at application lifecycle management being requirements design, build, test, deploy, operate, and optimize. And so it's pretty much a standard lifecycle, whether it's application lifecycle management, product lifecycle management, customer lifecycle management. Pretty much most lifecycles follow a very similar process, and there's different takes on that. We're going to really be focused on testing, but when you look at ALM from an overall value perspective, there's a couple different things. One is where it drives. We're really looking at cost and efficiency and risk and compliance, which also could be used against projects and operation, or what we refer to as build and run. So there's a lot of benefits for doing ALM correctly. The thing when you're looking at SAP, though, specifically the application lifecycle management, you're really looking at Solution Manager. And Solution Manager 7.2 is a great product. It actually is, when you look at it in comparison to other products on the market, it's really a market leader. The reason for that is it has so many different capabilities embedded to it. Like if you look at other products on the market that fall in the space, products like ServiceNow or HP ALM, which is now Micro Focus, right? Or things like CA or different tools. They pretty much focus on only one aspect of application lifecycle management. But when you get into Solution Manager, it's a full breadth of capabilities. And then there's a significant value of Solution Manager in the fact that it comes free with your annual support. And at the beginning of last year, there was a real significant development, and that was that SAP dropped the named user license requirement. So there's no named user license requirement anymore to use Solution Manager. which means anybody in the organization can use it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be for SAP. It could be for non-SAP now, and that's what you're really seeing. The growth in solution managers, not only from capabilities around specific to SAP, but also capabilities that are more for non-SAP. And that really holds true as we get into testing today. So I also want to just move forward here, take you into Solution Manager and Focus Build. So if you go back, it wasn't very long ago that this is what Solution Manager looked like. This was the way, if you had visited our webinars in years past, we would be promoting this kind of a layout for Solution Manager. It was kind of complicated, lots of different tools that were integrated. The big thing here was, from a testing standpoint, we were really pushing hard using HP Quality Center. There was an adapter that you could buy from SAP, and if you wanted to do automation, you would use TAO, which was an add-on to UFT and basically allowed you to do automation. But it was kind of complicated, as you can see, it wasn't very elegant in the way it was set up. So when SAP came up with 7.2, what they wanted to do was get away from this complication. So currently, when you look at this, the adapter, the TAO licenses, the ARIS models, and so forth, they're no longer offered in Solution Manager. You can integrate them if you want, but pretty much a lot of these capabilities have now been built in to Solution Manager directly. So if you go from that very complicated environment, now taking a look at the current version of Solution Manager 7.2, you can see it's an integrated platform. It's much simpler. These are all Solution Manager products. There are no, third-party products in there, although we do integrate to a lot of third-party tools, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But basically, there's these 10 functional capabilities that come standard with Solution Manager. They can be ran on their own, install and run on their own. There's no prerequisite that you have to have any of these pieces, components installed before you run one another. However, since it is a platform, there's a synergy. And when we talk about platforms, it'd be similar to like an ECC or an S4 system where you have different functional capabilities that all, can to work independently, but there's a higher value by them working together. And that's the same type of situation we see with Solution Manager, being an integrated platform that you can take advantage of all these capabilities. The one we're going to really focus here on today is Test Suite, and that actually exists in a couple different areas within Solution Manager. So the two areas of Solution Manager that Test Suite really plays in, from a key value scenario, what we refer to as the build side, which is this requirements to deploy. So when we were talking about building software, this is everything to basically develop, design, the requirements gathering, the build, the design, the test, the deployment. We call that requirements to deploy, or the build side. And then the run side is detect to correct, and Test Suite also exists there. And so on the detect to correct, these would be being proactive in terms of finding problems in the system proactively, making tickets that basically you can execute against. So that's the run side. And oftentimes when we're looking at the run side, we have many customers that are interested in basically using ServiceNow, or they're currently using ServiceNow. So we do a lot of integrations with ServiceNow on the run side just to do that. But today we're really going to be focusing on Test Suite. So and on this build side, on specifically around the requirements to deploy. So when you look at the build side here, there's a couple different ways that Solution Manager offers customers to build software. You can use the traditional Solution Manager capabilities that are available in this sect, or the recent addition that we're very happy about working with and has been tremendously successful for customers, is a new product called Focus Build. And what Focus Build is, Focus Build takes advantage of this integration that exists in the platform with all these different capabilities that are standard with Solution Manager. And it basically sits on top of Solution Manager and provides some unique capabilities, tying everything together with lots of different process flows and workflows. So it's basically an integrated platform for delivery, and specifically for the delivery of SAP projects. And probably the highest value proposition it has is delivery for S4. So when you're looking at, if you're considering an S4 project coming up, maybe you're just started one, or they haven't even been planning it yet, you really should be looking at it at Focus Build, because when we were talking about initially, we were talking about some of the recent developments in application lifecycle management, the move to Agile and DevOps and Scrum and work packages and user stories and epics and all these capabilities that are now commonplace in more aggressive development or DevOps and Agile operations, are pretty much inherent in Focus Build. So when you look at Focus Build, you can see there's aspects of Solution Manager all the way across this, between process management and project management. Change and release management is built in. Requirements in terms of these requirements a little bit different because we use an Agile methodology. So these requirements get into user stories and work packages and work items. You can also see the focus of our presentation today. Test Suite is also embedded into Focus Build. And then the other thing it has here is the ability to actually integrate into more of an Agile deployment, right? So we integrate with products like Jira and Azure DevOps to really bring that level of agility into your environment, and which is really unique because usually SAP is on the tailing edge of some of these technologies related to application lifecycle management. So here it's very interesting that they have a kind of a lead role here in a lot of cases. So for a lot of you that are considering your CIO might have a MBO related to or initiative related to really developing a DevOps strategy, Focus Build really could enable a quick win there, if you will, because it has the APIs in it and so forth that you can either use the tools out of the box or you can integrate with other tools that are popular like Jira and Azure DevOps. Lastly, with Focus Build, if you commit to the platform, basically all the reporting, all the manual reporting that you as an individual, a team member or a PMO or a stakeholder would have to do with aggregating data basically comes as an outcome. So the more you commit to the package, the better the reporting is. And the reporting is delivered to what's referred to as a solution readiness dashboard. And if you haven't seen that, I'm not going to go into a lot of details about that today because we want to focus on the testing, but tremendous value there from a PMO and stakeholder standpoint in terms of being able to track the project, understand and identify and mitigate risk, right, as well as really keeping track of the timeline and estimates, and just does a fantastic job. So Focus Build is a great product. We use it on a lot of big S4 projects, and if you're considering an S4 project, you should definitely consider looking at Focus Build. So moving into Solution Manager Test Suite. So this is what we refer to as our money slide. It's a great slide from SAP, kind of discusses how Test Suite is set up. So basically what you have is a workflow across the top here: solution documentation, change impact analysis, test planning, execution, and analytics. So when you look at it, the heart of the system is really in the solution documentation. That's where things start. If you're not familiar with the documentation environment, we'll take you shortly through that. Change impact analysis is the next step. This is really a high value capability within Test Suite. If you're using other tools like HPLM and specifically, you probably will have to purchase a third-party tool for your change impact analysis. You probably look at products like IntelliCorp or Panaya. Fortunately for us, Test Suite has a great change impact analysis tool that doesn't read tables and libraries like those tools do. It uses something called a T-bomb, and I'm going to go into T-bombs today, but it's just a more accurate method to get to an understanding of the change impact analysis. Next step is really the test planning and execution. Larry will walk you through that today, and the internal tool for automation that comes with Solution Manager is CBTA. CBTA is a very easy to use tool. It's a great tool for automation, and we'll explain a little bit more about that. But first, I'll just take you through a quick review of the documentation repository. So if you haven't seen the Solution Manager documentation repository, it's meant to basically mimic the way that your system's set up, so you can look at your business processes either by the end-to-end scenarios, so in this case, we're looking at procurement scenarios and sales scenarios. You dive into the sales scenarios, you can see we got order, cash, you got different variants, and then as you move into the actual transactions, they're listed here. And so it's very nicely set up. Like I said, it's meant to mimic your systems. You can also look at it from the standpoint of libraries. So the libraries would be more related to functional areas. So as you get into process steps, from a finance area or sales and distribution area, you get, SS, SD or MM, FI, CO, LE, those types of things, and you can drill down in to finally get the transactions. So kind of interesting here, the libraries are a lot of capabilities in Solution Manager to generate these libraries automatically. So we never, typically 90% of the time we start a project, the documentation repository is not built out, so we have to help customers do that. So there are a lot of different tools to do that. So if you haven't adopted Solution Manager yet, or you're concerned about, hey, well, we don't have the documentation repository built out, don't worry about it. Nobody ever does. And so that's very much a standard part of our deployment process. I was telling you before, like you used to use other third-party tools for modeling. Now there's a whole modeling tool that's built into Solution Manager. And you can look at it either by different operational areas or user types, or you can look at it by systems, right? And so if you're going to look at it by systems, then this enables what we refer to as business process monitoring. You can actually go through and see if the business process is getting hung up on any particular area. Looking at change impact analysis, like I said, there's a lot of capabilities here. It's a great tool. It takes a little while to set up, but it basically tells you an automated, proactive method for evaluating the effects of future changes on target systems. So I have a transport going from maybe dev to QA, and I want to see the effect it's going to have on my target system in the QA environment. Basically, instead of doing that evaluation manually, you can use change impact analysis to do that. Also in change impact analysis, you can do test scope optimization. This is something that's pretty common in change impact analysis tools, since the software understands the transport or what's coming into the system and also understands the target system, and then it can make recommendations on doing test scope optimization. And so we'll get into a little bit of that today. So there's tremendous benefits from change impact analysis. There's two tools in there, SCA and BPCA, and Larry will be talking about that shortly in the demonstration. From the test planning and test execution, if you're using products like especially HPALM, this is what HPALM does well: planning, management, execution, analytics. That's their forte. And defect management, typically customers hold all their non-production defects in HPALM. So that's the same case here. If you're moving to test suite, that would be the same environment here. And here's an example of how we actually go through that process as standard kind of process flow specific to test suite in terms of doing preparation, planning, execution, and analytics. So it's a very good tool, and they're going to show you a little bit more about that in a minute. The next step, and the last thing I just want to discuss real quickly, is CBTA, which is the automated testing tool. So if you're not familiar with CBTA, it's very easy to use. So I give you an example of how it's actually used in when you actually get into it. So like here you have a 12-step process. You kind of an order to cash process here. What happens when you're using CBTA is actually you record each one of these transactions individually, and then when you want to do an end-to-end test, you basically string them together. And so what the nice thing about this is, as you're recording each one of these, becomes a reusable testing asset. So if I'm doing, let's say I have lots of variations on VA01, or I've used these different transactions and other end-to-end scenarios, once I have it recorded, I can then basically use that as an asset to build out another end-to-end automation. The benefit here is that if one of these transactions were to change, basically I don't have to go through and redo the whole end-to-end automation. Basically all I have to do is update that one transaction that's changed, re-record that, string it all together, and then you're good to go. The other thing that's really cool about Solution Manager, which I'll get to, or CBTA, which I'll get to in a second, is the ability to build test data on the fly. That's a huge value proposition, but you'll find with most of our customers is that CBTA is very easy to use. You can get value in hours instead of days and weeks. The time to testing, like any other tool, is usually significantly reduced by as much as 90%. And the other thing that most customers don't consider when they're doing automated testing is the documentation. Oftentimes when you're doing manual testing, requiring the users to basically do the screenshot captures and all that. When you do automated tests, all that documentation is included. So it's very powerful that way. Here's an example from an end-to-end automation. This was a 68-step end-to-end business process. It was a complete Z transaction. So this was completely custom in SAP. So if you have questions whether or not CBTA can do custom transactions, absolutely. This one was the shop floor transactions, a bunch of different users, lots of logins. And the big thing here was the data creation on the fly. We've talked to customers in the past that would say to us, oh, I would never do automated testing because you have to do all the data in advance. And that's not necessarily true, because using automated tools like CBTA, you can actually generate the data as part of the automation. And what really is nice about that, now when I have this end-to-end scenario as an automation asset, I don't have to worry about creating data. I can run that automation at any time. So from regression testing or anytime I want to run it, basically it's not an issue, right? Because it's going to create the data on the fly. I don't have to worry about that. So it really puts power back into IT, back into the testing team, because now I'm not hung up on trying to schedule users to do UAT. I could run this at any time and get the benefits back and get the results back. So you can see normally 2 to 3 weeks to schedule, 60 hours to run, runs in 38 minutes in CBTA. So a very powerful tool. Also, if you're a validated customer from a FDA standpoint, the nice thing about Solution Manager and Focus Build is it has complete traceability and supports the validation process, everything from requirements management, change and release management with digital signature, as well as the full testing package, all included in Solution Manager. And the traceability aspect here, being able to trace the testing to verify a requirement, those have been recently added in Solution Manager 7.2 over the last releases. So just moving forward, because I want to get to the demo, so I want to get over to Larry. Build. When you get into Focus Build, it has a little bit different workflow than traditionally from a standard Solution Manager operation, because it's really focused specifically on the build side. So you have prepare, explore, realize, deploy, and run. So that's the kind of the workflow used. This is kind of the process flow that follows that. From a system perspective, when you're looking at specifically building the software, going through, this is an example from one of our customers in terms of how their systems are set up: sandbox, dev, QAS, pre-production, prod. This is kind of the workflow they follow, different types of testing cycles that fit in that flow. Actually, when you're going through and actually doing an end-to-end business process, this is kind of once again, the process flow that works there. What we're going to be focusing on today is over here, the test planning, single functional test, functional integration test, and user acceptance testing. But this kind of gives you an understanding of the Agile methodology that's used when typically developing an end-to-end process and figuring it out. Also, when folks build, you get into doing waves and sprints, right? So there's an example at the project level down to the different levels of the or statuses within the project, into waves and sprints, the types of things that occur, unit testing, single functional testing, which Larry's going to talk about, getting into acceptance testing and so on. So it just gives you an idea of what the process is from a Focus Build perspective. Once again, when you're using Focus Build, this actually setting up and executing the process, there's this process flow. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Larry.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, Larry Wilson. My area within Focus Build and test, and within ALM is the testing area, and I've been in that area for the last 15, 20 years. So I know all the history of HPALM, and so now SAP with 7.2 and Test Suite, they made the first move into moving away from HPALM. But one of the things that really was missing was the test steps part, and so I'm going to get into that briefly, but in just a moment. But I wanted to kind of walk you through the way this all works. So again, Test Suite, it's a good product, but then the question is, and I notice the statistics that came from the questionnaire on how many are really heading to S4 HANA. So Focus Build really is set up for the Agile methodology, but you also can use it for the waterfall methodology. And so the other question, if 50% of the folks are not going to be going to S/4HANA until 2020 or later, what can the focus build part of Test Suite do for me? So the big advantages for you are a few things. It's tighter integration with charms and with solution documentation, and test steps is a major part of that too, and test execution and the way that works. So one of the other things I think as we do these webinars that, again, and trying to improve the content is, not to get hung up on looking at the hierarchy, the process management part of it. If you wanted to really use focus build and just to run the business, one of the things you can do is to structure your solution documentation just for you to be able to run now, and then you would be more prepared later when you build this out for S/4HANA, whatever point in time you're going to do it. For example, you can create test steps, or you can create just at the process level, and at the process level, that's where end-to-end scenarios would be created. So some folks that we've worked with, it's not necessary unless you're doing RISEs. So if you really are doing development type work, you would need the steps and follow the process that I'm going to go through. But if you don't, if you really wanted just to build out your regression testing, take advantage of test steps, you could just build the process level, and at that level, you could begin creating your CBT end-to-end regression test within Solution Manager, and you wouldn't have to wait to get a full build out of the solution documentation hierarchy. So, just one example, there are options. So generally, when we do focus build now, we're kind of looking forward and the way things are headed. But at the same time, there's a lot of advantages of thinking about focus build even now. So having said that, I'm going to say process documentation is where the integration happens. So you can create test steps, test cases either at the process level or individually at the process step level when you're doing RISEs and supporting your current development activities. And test steps is one of the big advantages of going to focus build, even though you're not ready to go to S/4HANA. And the way test steps designer works, is this showing up on my screen, Doug, or is that? Can you see the pop-up there?
Yeah, there you can see your screen just fine.
Okay, I got a pop-up here that's kind of getting in the way from the, let's see, oh, here, control panel. Okay, I think I got it out of the way now. Okay, so the way creating test steps works is it's a separate tile in solution document or Solution Manager 7.2. So I'm not going to go through all the navigation. I'm just going to go right to this part of it. So you can go in and just by manually going in, you can create test steps, test cases, and you create the header information, and the header information looks like this test case name. It's the folders, and then it's attached to the folders, and then you enter in the test steps, and this one's already done. I'm not going to go through all the steps, but you just enter in the information. You could copy and paste it if you wanted to. You can copy steps and move those around. You can create a template to use, and to be able to use as a starting point for test cases that you're just entering in. And then you can copy test cases and then just use those and do like we did and we've done over the years with HPQLM. You could copy and then just change the steps that you need to. So you got all the advantages of similar to HPLM here. But also one of the things that's really great about test steps, and as you would want to add this to just basic test suites, standard test suites. They may have, it comes with a standard test suite, but Focus Build is a add-on on top of that. So the advantage here is you can upload from CSV files. So CSV files, if you have those, you can save in Excel. You can do your work in Excel, move things around really quick, save it to a CSV file. Google Sheets, same way. You can do Google Sheets and then save it CSV file, so that's no problem. And then in HPLM, of course, everybody's familiar with mapping, and it's the same or similar in test steps, test cases. You just map the headers, column headers, and your CSV file to the mappings to upload it. And this is one that I've uploaded, and you can see it uploads. So now one of the other questions everyone has is, what about HPLM? Well, if you're currently in HPLM, you are interested in saving your test cases. When you go to S/4HANA, you may be able to use some, you may not. You may want to do it different ways. Some folks, want to go ahead and do the automation. Oftentimes, it's maybe easier even to create new test cases. But if you're not going to HANA anytime soon, you can still go to HPLM, and there's a script that's available that will go into HPLM test plan. It'll format that into the CVS file format that we need for uploading into Solution Manager Test Suite, and you do the upload just like I showed you here. So that's a big benefit for those who maybe are looking, they're looking at the future, but they're not quite ready to do all the work. There's still things you can do to be heading in that direction. So next, I want to go back to the go back to the solution documentation. So again, the big integration point within Solution Manager was change in Release Manager, and with the Test Suite and with Project Management, Portfolio Management is the process management part, which is the solution documentation. So again, test steps, test cases, I timed out here. Let me refresh. Test steps upload. So the way you connect, once you've created the test, uploaded the test cases and you've created them, the way that you select those or upload those is, see right here is a test cases. So if we've already created them in this test steps designer, we can assign them. If we were doing them manually for the first time, could create them from here. So this is a big integration point. And where I want to go from there, and to show you other touch points from integration, is requirements. So from here, we can, and actually I need to be up at the process step level to show you this. That's where you would be able to do requirements. So requirements would be created from process and process steps, and then from there, you create the requirements in the process and process steps. Here's a requirement that's been created. And in the slide that Doug showed just a minute ago, one of the things that was shown was that there's different levels of testing. So there's work packages that are being created. So again, this is for RICEFs or any of your current development that's going on. You can use this process of creating requirements, and then in those requirements, from requirements, you create a work package. And in the work package, again, this is the first part that is created, and from there we'll create work items. But what I want to show you is the integration point here. So functional specifications, and test steps and other documents, configuration documents and diagrams, those would all be integrated with the solution documentation hierarchy. And what you do is you select the ones that you want. So you have the test cases built, and you say, okay, for this work package, I want this test case. And then this next step is in work items. And work items is the unit test level. So work packages is at the single functional test level. And I'll show you shortly here how those test cases get set up and run. So now we're in work items. Work item is really where the development's going on. Again, within the work item can have the test case that belongs to that, and then the developers, as they're completing their work and having transports, it's tied in with change and release management. They would select the transports that that they're creating for configuration or for RICEFs. When they're ready to do that, then they go through a process of testing those. So development started, the development's in progress, then it's ready to be tested. And when it's successfully tested, the next part is then creating a test plan. So Doug mentioned that earlier, and here's an example of a test plan and how it's created. So all the work packages have been created for a particular sprint or wave, and then when that's completed, we then go in and take those work packages and the test cases that belong to those work packages and select those and then create the test plan. So save as new creates a test plan. Then we at this point create from all the work packages so the process there is the developer, there's multiple work items, developers are working on those. As they complete them, that's going to show successfully tested for the work items. When all the work items are done and all the work packages have been tested, then it's ready for the testing, single functional testing at the wave level. So at this point, we assign testers, and then those testers would, I might have to move this. Assign testers and select a tester or multiple testers, or you could, one of the ways you can do this is you could have business process groups, and within those groups, send emails to the group, or you can have one or multiple users that can be assigned for people when people are out on leave, or maybe they've been assigned to a test case, but haven't are not available, and someone else can take that, and so we can do the testing while they're not available to save time. So let's get this set up. Use this ID. And then I want to save that ID. So I can keep adding multiple testers. I can replace a tester as necessary. I can do a mass operation, upload all the testers for a long end-to-end test. So once that's completed, then the testers are assigned. Then it's simply going to the tester, going to the testers work list, test executions that are assigned by testers. So there will be a tile that shows up for the tester, and then they would they would see that they've been assigned that test. And the way it's set up is this one is ready to test. So the user that's been assigned to test this, they would get an email and it says, okay, this one's ready to test. And they'd go to the tile, find this step, go to it. And then there's different statuses here: being processed, errors, retest, okay, or okay with reservations, meaning it's 80% complete. So that helps, maybe a long end-to-end test case, maybe it's 80% or better complete, gives you a better idea of, what the real status is. It's okay. Then if there's an error on there, it's going to be an error retest. So one other part is actual results. So in this case, I'm going to say failed, and then save that, and then assign a defect or an existing defect, or I can create a new defect. And the defect and system is S4S or FBS. Select the system. Title is all is required, processor, and then categories, and then attachment. You would do an attachment to say, okay, this is how the defect can be recreated. Create a defect at this point, and then next would be to go to the testers tile, and I'll show you the navigation to that. So focus build is set up by roles, and the tester role would see tiles, my test executions, and my defect. So that defect was just created. And then there's different statuses that it's going to go through at this point, and set to end process or withdraw. And then when it's being reviewed by so in process, so it's when it's being reviewed next by the test manager, functional lead, architect, they can come and say, okay, proposed solution, there's actually a solution for this, and you can go ahead and test it again. Could set it to tester action, and send a message and say this is really functioning as designed. You need to look at your test case. Or next, it would could be a next it could be a create a defect correction. And defect correction then is going to send it to be managed through the defect correction process, and go back to the navigate back to test or to defect corrections. Actually, I want to go running out of time here, but let me go to the developers tile, and that's where defect corrections would show up. Those defect corrections would then go through the process, the normal process. Defect correction would go through, make the changes, and when the changes are done, it would be set, well, first it's set to be corrected status. After that status is complete, it's going to be going to go to set to retest, and if there's transports, it would be set to retest with transports, and there would be a screen to pop up for the transports that are being created or that are part of the correction, and then set to be retested without transport. And then when it's retested, it's going to be confirmed that the defect correction's been created, are completed, and then it goes back to the tester again, to the tester work list, to test executions, and then in the test executions would then do the retest, set it to completed, or create another defect if it wasn't corrected. So I'm going to turn it over to Sherry now, and she'll go ahead and take questions. I think we only have a few minutes for that.
Thank you, Larry. Unfortunately, we don't have time today for our usual Q&A section, but we want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We really appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to hop on a call with you after this workshop. If you did submit a question, we will be sure to reach out to you after.